When it comes to knowing your learners, it is important to consider both the cognitive and social-cultural aspects of your learner. The National Assessment Tool is linked to the suite of resources in the Learning Progressions Framework. These provide insights into the cognitive skills set of your learners. This section will provide insights into our Pasifika learners from a social and cultural perspective.
Traditionally, Pacific cultures are highly social, and there are strong connections between the members of communities, and these connections are based on things like mutual trust and reciprocal exchange. And family and community for a Pacific learner, they have a big influence on not only life but also learning. So to better understand your Pacific learner, it's very important that you look beyond the individual. A useful way of understanding this is to draw on the Socioecological Model, and this is based on Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, and that was developed in the late 1970s. The model, of course, has been adapted and it's been used in many settings since then to demonstrate the relationship between an individual and their environment, and the people and the factors that influence them. The socio-ecological model is often represented visually as a series of concentric circles, and at the centre of the model is the individual. And they have many factors within them that shape who they are, but the secret of the model is that a person's development is not only influenced by internal factors, it's also influenced by the people around them. And in the socio-ecological model, these other spheres of influence, they're represented by a series of progressively larger circles, and they represent the spheres of influence on the individual, and they go from the very near to the more distant. So the closest circle to the individual is the family and close friends, and then the relationships within those spheres are likely to have the greatest influence on the individual. The next circle out represents the organisational level, and it represents local community. The outermost circle represents public and wider society, and all of these spheres represent the individual's social networks and also their spheres of influence. In an educational context, the socio-ecological model encourages us to recognise the important effect that the relationships with these wider spheres have on our learner. And it has a number of very important implications for classrooms, both in terms of learning and in terms of teaching. Most of our Pasifika learners, they exist within complex systems of relationships that form their environment. And this is their world. This is their lived reality. It's part of who they are. And if as an educator, you want to engage with your Pasifika learners and to know how they make sense of the world, you need to get to know these other spheres. You need to know your learner. So establishing respectful and comfortable working relationships with the people in these spheres, it can be a real challenge for educators, but it's very important. Showing a genuine interest in your learner's world, it can show that you are committed to the interpersonal relationship that is really valued in Pacific cultures, and it's also essential for learning. So by doing something simple like just attending a community or family function, if you're invited, going to a Pasifika festival, you can learn so much about your learners and the people and the networks and the experiences and the places that have shaped them and made them who they are and who they will be in your classroom today. The socio-ecological model illustrates the importance of social connectedness and the existence of support networks for a Pasifika learner. So when learners from backgrounds like this, with high degrees of connectedness, enter a tertiary institution, they can sometimes experience sudden isolation, and this can potentially have negative impacts on their well-being and also on their educational success. So it's really important for these learners that a sense of social connectedness and a series of support networks can be refound within the institution. So when we bring the socio-ecological model into an educational context, we also need to bear in mind that this model, in this model, a Pasifika learner is not just a passive recipient of these influences, because they, just as they are affected by the people around them, they also influence and shape the people within these spheres. And because of this two-way influence, several quite important implications arise for us as educators. The first is that we must remember that although in a classroom you may only see a Pasifika individual before you, behind them are the spheres of influence that you cannot see. So the impact of the interactions that you have with that individual and the eventual outcome of the learning and teaching situation, they are going to have far-reaching consequences and effects. And so it's important to remember that a Pasifika learner brings with them the hopes, the expectations, the pride and the aspirations of their family. And so when you, as an educator, facilitate their success, you bring success to a whole family, to an extended family with intergenerational groupings, to a community, and to people however far that person's spheres of influence reach. So if you know this, it introduces a level of accountability that many educators may not have considered before. And it's important to remember that actually the stakes are high, and this added layer of responsibility for safeguarding the passage of this individual through their educational journey is your responsibility, and it's both a challenge and an honour. And educators, I believe, who are dedicated to the educational success of Pasifika peoples, they are acutely aware of this. And it's this knowledge of their responsibility that guides the relationships, the actions, and also the processes in teaching. Another interesting understanding that we can draw from the two-way influences within the socio-ecological model is that our learners have an influence on those around them because of the roles that they play within those spheres. And it's important to remember that a Pasifika learner will often be simultaneously undertaking many such roles, and they will be connected with a variety of people and places, and with this comes sets of responsibilities, comes obligations, demands on time and energy and resources. So education, when it's taken up by a Pasifika learner, it's simply fitted into an already very complex life. And education may present, its own challenges and demands on their resources. So as an educator, part of our job is to understand this. It's to also respond to it by demonstrating flexibility and by giving them opportunities to draw on the skills that they already possess, and also to equip them with new skills so that they can successfully manage all of the demands that come from these many roles. So the socio-ecological model is a useful one for understanding the connectedness of our Pasifika learners, and the model may also be helpful to you personally for understanding your own connectedness and how it shapes who you are and how you influence the people around you. So knowing firstly that both we and our learners bring into the classrooms these connections, and understanding that a change in any one layer or sphere of influence will have ripple effects into the others. Knowing these things can be a powerful and a challenging way to look again at our learning and our teaching environments.